As a boy, Coates learned to fear the world. Concern from his father, expressed as spankings, and what he saw in his friends who sought to command the streets. Both appeared to him as fear. A. What fear do you have in your youth about protecting your body, if any? And how did those fears influence parenting? You know, the fears that I have had during my youth, I had so many fears. I guess it depends on the environment that you grew up in. You know, whether I grew up in the city, and at times not a particularly good area of the city, and there was always a fear. There was a fear of walking down the street, me and my girlfriend, and walking past the alley. We would walk close to the curb because young little girls' bodies were not their own in their neighborhood. You know, there were little girls that were raped or molested. Going to school, I remember being in 7th grade or 6th grade, and as Coates as his father did, and as he did, worrying about your worry was how many people were you going to walk to school with in the morning. What time are you going to leave to avoid this group of people and that group of people? And I was in no group. Spanking. Now, that's another issue that Michelle knows I feel very strongly about. I don't believe in spanking at all. And many years ago, they spanked children, and they didn't spank children. As a matter of fact, the way some parents hit children, I don't even call it spanking. You'd be in jail today.
I know.
So that was always a fear of, I knew that when I had children, if I ever had children, because I never thought about it, mind you. I don't think Michelle and I were on that tip about the children in the marriage. Little girls grow up and think they want to, but I knew I wasn't going to hit them. It's just so many fears I had, Dean, every day. You wonder why children in the city have a hard time in school, because you have so many things to think about. The children coming from middle-class white families don't have to think about.
Right.
They don't have to think about walking to school and who they have to avoid, and how many of your girlfriends you're going to walk with, and after school, who's going to be waiting for you. They want to fight you in your own community to hurt you. You don't have to worry about those kind of things. The gang wars.
Right.
Then they had gang wars like they have them now, except guns weren't as readily available then as they are today. Instead, they stabbed each other. They used car irons and machetes and this and that. I mean, it was just so many fears about being hurt all the time. It's awful. It was awful. And I think at one point in the book he was saying, how he felt. He was angry. I think I actually, Michelle and I had that conversation just a few days ago. I was angry. Like, why would my parents have me here?
Right.
Why would they have me living in all this stuff where I have to have all these worries every day? And I wrote that twice because it brought back these memories, terrible memories to me, because I was very angry, and it took me many years to get over it. Many years to get over that anger. Why would my parents have me in this situation? So I had fears every day, all day. I knew that when I had children that I was not going to put them in harm's way. I was not going to live in a ghetto. I was not going to have them ducking bullets every day. I was not going to have them getting up in the morning worrying about how they're going to get to school, whether they're going to get there, how they're going to get home. I wasn't going to have them worried about if they just behaved in a way that I didn't approve, that my hand was going to come down on them, or ironing cord, or a belt, or whatever people use to beat their children. And I say beat because it's like beat your child. You know what I'm saying? I knew they were going to live in a home that was conducive to learning and growing, that was pleasant, that was quiet. I knew that I was going to always be present, not just for their daily needs, but for education, for if they needed me, if they wanted to talk about anything, if they felt anything, if they needed it. I knew I was going to be totally present.
Right.
So I kind of, what it showed me is what I did not want to do. So I learned a lot. I learned what I didn't want to be and what I didn't want to do and how I wasn't going to live. And I knew that my children would never grow up and say, why would my parents put me here?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Well, that's interesting. I agree with Venita's point that what we learn in our childhoods, helps to shape the kind of parents that we had. My parents didn't do a whole lot of spanking. They did some, but not enough for me to develop a real fear around that or a real decision, that I would never spank my child. And I did spank my child. And
I can attest to that.
Huh?
I have never had a spanking in my life.
I know, and you're probably you're probably one of the very few black people that can actually say that.
And it's so sad. It's so sad that that's a brag.
Yeah.
No, but I've seen enough of them to know that I didn't want none of those. I've seen people get
You saw it.
Yeah.
No, you know what? I did have some, but not a lot. Logan used to like to, with my brother, one of my brothers, Larry, he and I fought every day of our lives as children. And he was the type that was always starting stuff. But he was real quiet, real smooth, the type that just pick at you. And then I'm loud and, out of control and whatnot. And so I would come along and I'm bigger than him. I was bigger than him as a child. So I would finish the stuff that he started. But that's when my mother would always notice something was up. And so her strategy was to knock our two heads together. Which I always thought was so unfair.
It was quick.
But no, but so I mean, I'm pretty sure that if I had a child today, I wouldn't do as much spanking, but I might do some, because I do relate to the fears of the parents that Coates was describing, in this book, that comment, either I'm going to beat you or the police is going to do it. It's this urgency around trying to get your child to understand something that they really shouldn't have to understand.
Right.
But because of the world we live in, they need to go on and understand it.
Right.
And so that was that. But my own fear as a child and a young person had more to do with protecting my body from rape. That was kind of my biggest concern. And of course I was not very effective at it. But that did influence my parenting in the sense that when I was young, it was mostly about girls being raped. But by the time we were late teenagers, young adults, Venita, there was more and more talk about boys and men being raped. Yes. This was sort of the beginning of the prison pipeline. And so you had a lot of young men that were going to prison, and a lot of stories swirling around about the sexual things that happened to them once they got there, as well as a lot of revelations about just child predators in society that like boys. So I was very concerned about, protecting Dean from those kind of scenarios, and and so I may have been a bit on the overprotective side because that was my way of working through that fear. What about you, Dean? Any childhood fears? I know you were scared of me.
Huh? I was not just you. I was always scared. I was scared in Newark because just going to school, just walking to school, there were gangs of kids like waiting to fight all the time, and there were guns at the schools right next to me, and knives and all kinds of stuff that kids shouldn't have. They were at the school at Weekway High, right next to Big Chancellor, right next to Chancellor Avenue.
What
so
about,
I was scared then.
You were there through what, the second grade?
Something like that, second or third grade.
What about by the time you got to Edison?
I was at Little Chancellor, the annex, and I was at the big school. I was at both of them, so I was there for maybe a few grades. So I was old enough to understand the fear of being next to guns and violence, and I already had gangs of kids waiting to pick on me because I was a bit of a loner when I was a little kid, and there was this kid who he decided to pick on me, and he had like 5 people with him, and here it is, just me. So I was terrified to walk to school just to get my education in Newark, because I really had nobody, and he had a crew of people, and not having a father, I had no one to teach me how to fight or to survive. You're unconscious about these things when you're a kid. You don't know that the police are going to be racist to you, but when you don't, but it's more of a fear of kids, of other kids in that moment. You're not really conscious to the fact that society is not going to protect you. If you say that somebody was hurting you and you defended yourself, you don't know that they're not going to protect you, but you're just scared in general from that point, So that part, that has something to do with us moving to Newark. I mean, from Newark to Edison.
Yeah, it's also why I sent you off for karate lessons.
Yeah, but if we didn't stick with it, if it wasn't something that we stuck with, then I'm not going to become Bruce Lee.
No.
You know what I mean? And if the point for me to defend myself, I need the confidence to keep going in it. That's why I don't really necessarily agree with stopping kids or giving them so much freedom to stop the things all the time. Yes, expose kids, but kids need to be able to build confidence in an area and to build security. Kids don't know what's good for them. You can't necessarily take kids at the face value like you're talking to an adult. Kids need time to foster their desire to do something. They may need to learn the things that they don't want to know in order to become the person that they need to be.
Well, you're right. I was a very free-spirited mother.
Kids need to be able. Kids sometimes need to be told to do something in order to learn the lessons that they need to know in life. And sometimes I have to have that struggle with Vanessa about things. Yeah, but I had a lot of fears. But most of it stemmed from not having a father to teach me, to give me the courage to not be afraid. So when I was in Edison, I was scared in Edison because there were gangs in Edison at my school. And when I was in high school. So I was trying not to get too close to people.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there were. So I was trying not to get too close to those people in those situations, But I think by not having my dad around, for whatever reason he decided not to be there, he created a very fearful environment for me as a child. that I was
And how is that influencing your role as a parent?
Well, I've decided I'm not going to leave him. You know, being a single parent is a very tough job, but you're not supposed to be a single parent. You know, it can be done, but you're not supposed to do it by yourself. Fathers teach their sons lessons in being a man, in defense, in confidence, in how to navigate the world. You know, things that your mother simply just can't teach you.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm, feeling.
You taught me a lot.
I'm feeling very proud at the moment of the man I created.
You taught me how to be smart. You taught me things that I needed to know. But because you were alone and you had to work all the time, there was lessons you couldn't teach me. I had to learn how to do my own laundry. There's things I had to learn because I was alone. But to be a man,
I couldn't do that.
There's things that I'm gonna have to teach my son that I wasn't taught when I was a kid. You know, how to build the confidence to carry yourself, and how to protect yourself from situations. You know, things my father was supposed to teach me, but he was either too selfish or didn't know in himself, or in whatever, in things that happened outside of my control led to the breakdown of my lesson. It hurt me. So what I have to teach my son is how to conduct himself, so that cops don't think that they have to shoot him, or they don't have to think that he's not educated, or when kids come up to him, how to respond appropriately. You know, the lessons that a father is supposed to teach his son. You know, it's great to have a mother, but a son also very much needs his dad. You know, he needs a dad to have a firm hand, to show them and to teach him respect. You know, because respect for authority is very important, especially in a world of racism. You know, especially in a world where people won't give you the second chance to get something wrong twice. You know? When people won't give you a chance to get it wrong twice, you better learn it the first time. And that's not to say that you should be fearful, but you should know how to respond to grow yourself. I'm in school right now. I'm trying to get my degree, so I want to teach him how important having an education is.
Here you go.
You know, you should never forsake having an education in this world.
All right.
Because you're going to need it. You know?
That's right.
And how important it is to be seen as somebody who's worth being seen.
All right.
So that you don't get misinterpreted. Because once you get into a box of being seen as somebody who's not worth society's time, then you'll never get out of that box. You will never escape it. Never.
There you go. All right.
So,
thank you, Papa Dean.
The fear that I grew up with is part of the responsibility that I have to my child to shield him from certain truths so they don't become his realities.